Hi, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Murrow Minutes Goes Virtual for the summer session. I'm Mackenzie Johnson, and I'm your host of this virtual video series, and we're so excited that you joined us here again to talk about your first year courses and first year faculty. We have some great guest speakers here with us today to talk about what your courses are going to look like this fall as we move to a virtual format, seemingly for kind of the first time. This is the first semester that we've said all classes will be virtual. It happened at the beginning of the semester rather than the middle of the semester. So this time we're hoping to give you a little bit more of a heads up about what that might look like. And so we have some awesome faculty here to talk to you about that, as well as Katie Duncan, as usual, who is the president of our Murrow Student Ambassador Program, to give her perspective as well. At the end of this video, we're also going to share once again how to read your fall schedule. There has been a lot of changes within the last couple of weeks that we want to review with you. Some classes are synchronous, some are asynchronous, and we really want to show you how to view that on schedules.wsu.edu, as well as your own personal schedule in MyWSU. So we'll be reviewing that at the end, so stay tuned for that. For now, I say we go ahead and jump into the questions that we have about what those first year courses are going to look like. And I say first year courses, but a lot of you are transfer students or coming from community colleges or with a lot of high school credit, but many of you still need to take our introductory courses in the Murrow College. And so our faculty are here to talk to you about what that's going to look like and why that's important. But first, as usual, I say we get Katie's perspective on this. She's a current student. She knows what it's like to take these courses, and she kind of knows why they're important too. So I say we start with some questions for her. We'll move into what your faculty want to share with you for this fall semester. And then as usual, we'll share some additional resources at the end. So Katie, first question for you. What were your favorite first year courses and why?
I loved all the classes I took at Murrow, but the first class I ever took day one of my freshman year was COM 105 with Gabrielle. She's actually on this call right now. And it really made me fall in love with COM. It really showed a perspective of how COM is in the new, there's like new, and then in 101 you go through kind of like the history of COM, which is also very interesting. But I really love the perspective of what's happening now, what does the industry look like now, and what we're gonna learn through our years at the Murrow College. How is that going to look like when you're out in the real world through advertisements and public relations campaigns and journalism? I just think it gave a really good overview of everything that we were going to learn in the next 4 years. So I would say that was my favorite course I take, my favorite first year course.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us. We hear that a lot about our intro comm courses, 101, 102, 105, even 138. Sometimes students say, hey, those guest speakers that you had were great. So I'm so glad that you had such a positive experience in your first year. Next question. Why do you think a broad knowledge in several topics is so important for Murrow students? And when I say kind of broad knowledge, generally what I'm talking about are those U-Core classes. So math, science, English, a lot of our students say, I'm focusing on communication. Why do I need math or science? But why do you think that broad knowledge is so important for our students particularly?
I think it's really important because comms people are needed in every industry. There's always need people to communicate in the science field, the math field, hospitality, business. There's always going to be a need to communicate what a business is doing or what an organization is doing. So I think that baseline knowledge really makes you competitive in any field that you go into, because you won't be going in from ground zero. You'll have a little bit of knowledge, and I think it makes you just more productive employee to be able to do some math, do some science, do some business, things like that. I think it really helps in no matter what field you want to go into. So you have this communication base, and that's what you're really good at, but you still have those knowledges in the back of your head that really can help you in any field you want to go into.
Great answer. Couldn't have said it better myself. So thanks so much for sharing that from a student perspective. Super important to have that background knowledge, like you said, in all of those topics. Last question I have for you before we kind of jump into our faculty questions. In the Murrow College, we have 4 prerequisite courses that our students need to take with us before they can jump into our upper division courses. And that's COM 101, COM 102, COM 105, and COM 138. So my question to you is, what advice do you have for our first year students or transfer students who are going into 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of those courses this fall semester?
I think my number one piece of advice would be go to class. And in this landscape, it's go to your Zoom lectures. I think it's really easy to not go or to say you'll catch up on it later, but it's really hard to catch up on it later because you don't want to. So I would just say go. Your professors are putting so much time and effort into changing this into a virtual format to make it so it's just as good for you as it would be in person. So I'd say really take advantage. These faculty know so much and they are really here to help us learn and help you succeed. So I would say, I know everyone says it, but introduce yourself on the first day of class, and that might be harder, but these professors have office hours and drop-in hours, so I'd really say take advantage of their expertise and their knowledge and really get to know your professors, and they want to help you learn, so I really would say get to know your professors as well.
Great advice, especially for students going into those first year courses. If you can build those relationships with your faculty members from day one, that'll serve you well through the rest of your college experience here with us in the Murrow College. So thanks so much for sharing that, Katie. We appreciate your perspective as always. Well, now I say we go ahead and move into talking with our faculty members about what fall is going to look like and some questions that we've had from students about, what courses are going to be, what things are going to be covered, how lectures are going to look like. So without much further ado, I would like our faculty members to go ahead and introduce themselves. Maybe let's say your name, your position, maybe what courses you teach, and how long you've been with the Murrow College. So first up, let's go ahead and have Gabriella, if you want to start us off. We'd love to have you guys introduce yourselves.
Sure, no problem. Hi, everyone. I'm Gabriella Bedoyan. I've been an instructor here at WSU for 7 years now. I've been teaching for over 14 years total, so it's definitely something that I love doing, and being part of the Murrow College has been a real privilege for me. So the 100 level courses that you're going to probably take from me as students is two courses, COM 105 and COM 138. Okay, so I am a professor of teaching here at the Edward R. Murrow College of Communication, and you may call me Professor Bedoyan. The only thing that I don't allow students to call me is Gabby. You have to say the whole name, and so I appreciate formality, but at the same time, I'm very interested in getting to know my students on a more personal level. So that's what I like to be called.
All right, so is it my turn? It's my turn, isn't it? Yes. Well, my name is Michelle Kistler, and I go by Professor Kistler, Dr. Kistler. I kind of like Gabby, because see, I can call her Gabby, right? Like Gabriella, I go with formality usually at first. So like in the larger classroom atmosphere or in emails and things like that. But I will say that there are, just kind of along those same lines, I have certain students who will come and meet with me regularly. And there does come a point where I'm kind of like, you can just say, hi, Michelle, that's it's okay. We're not in a formal classroom setting. And that actually comes back to COM and interpersonal communication and sort of standards and expectations. So it does kind of, feed into that. But my role, or my position, is professor of teaching, like Gabriella, and that means basically we are full-time teachers. So our emphasis is teaching as opposed to research. So that, if you're wondering what professor in teaching or something like that means that our jobs are primarily to teach. And so I teach COM 101. I've been actually teaching full-time for only 2.5 years, 2 years, but I've actually been with the Murrow College for several years doing project management, research endeavors on teams and things of that nature. So I've kind of worn many hats, you could say, in the Murrow College, but I think my calling is that of being a teacher. I really love teaching, but I do teach COM 101. And I actually teach a few different classes. So I teach COM Soc 301, which is Foundations of Persuasion, at least in the fall. In the spring, I have historically taught COM 309, which is Quantitative Research Methods. I have also taught labs in COM 102, actually, public speaking. So I've had a few different labs there. I've taught that online class as well. And this coming fall, I'm actually also teaching the online version of COM Strat, 476, which is consumer insights and branding. So that'll be kind of a new endeavor. So I kind of all over the place. But in terms of incoming freshmen, I'm your Com 101 person. So yeah.
Okay, my turn. Hi, everybody. I'm Erin Thompson, and I think like Michelle, I tend to start off a bit more formal. So typically in Com 102, which is my intro level class, I'll introduce myself as Dr. Thompson and encourage the students to utilize the title. And then, as we get to know each other more, there does start to become that, increased level of familiarity and informality. I also teach COM 486, which is crisis communication. Katie actually took that class last year. So, typically by that point, as students are a little bit more integrated into the college and you get to know your professors a little bit more, we tend to be on more of a first name, basis. My advice for newer students is if you're not sure about what to call your instructors and your professors, just ask. We're very happy to answer that question. And, some of us do have PhDs, so doctor is appropriate. Some don't, some prefer first name, some prefer the formality. So just ask. It's not, an usual or strange question at all. Let's see. I've been with Murrow for 5 years, so this will be the beginning of my 6th year teaching. Michelle and I actually were in the PhD program together back many years ago at this point. And I finished up in 2010 and then was in Oregon for a while before I was able to come back. So I'm just very happy still to be back at the Murrow College. I love it. And I love that we have so many people who have either gone to undergrad or grad school or, worked here and then come back to teach and so forth. It's a very tight-knit kind of community of instructors and professors and staff people, which I think is really awesome. As far as my role, I am a scholarly professor. So what that means is about 80% of my job is teaching, and then the other 20% is sort of organizational kinds of things. I do a lot of assessment activities for the Murrow College, which would probably be very boring from a student perspective, but I do a lot of just kind of running and maintaining the things behind the scenes on Com 102. So I'm sure we'll talk about our class formats and things in a few minutes, but with Com 102, you'll actually primarily interact with your instructor for your specific section. And I work with them so that we have kind of a cohesive, program running between all of the sections. We have, I think, something like 45 sections of Com 102 this semester. So it's a lot. So I teach, but I also do a lot of kind of administrative things behind the scenes as well. So I guess I will turn it back over to Mackenzie.
Thanks so much for introducing yourselves. We are so excited to have the three of you here with us today. Students time and time again say how phenomenal you guys are in the classroom. And so we are so excited to have you guys talk a little bit about what fall semester is going to look like. As I'm sure you guys can believe, some of our students have expressed concern with, it's going to be different from in person. And what we're trying to reassure them is your faculty are still here for you. And it's still the same faculty that would be teaching in person. And so what we want to do now is talk a little bit about what those fall courses are going to look like. So the first question, and again, I'll turn it back over to Gabriella first, but what can our new students expect this fall semester in their intro com courses? So whatever that means to you guys, but what can they ultimately expect in these courses?
Sure. Okay. So I'm going to start with 105. So one of the first things that you need to recognize is, yes, I'm using Blackboard and a lot of the content and information will be posted on Blackboard, but I'm also using a program for Com 105 called Top Hat. And what's interesting with Top Hat is that there's a lot of written content. There's a lot of articles to read, videos to watch, homework with questions embedded in the content. At the very bottom of that Top Hat screen, you're going to see a lecture that I've pre-recorded and inserted into Top Hat. And so for Com 105, there's a format I want you to follow. I want you to do the reading, I want you to answer the questions, and then I want you to watch my lecture, which is why it's at the bottom of your screen, and then review if necessary. So there's two places that you're going to go to find content for my class for 105. Blackboard, and Top Hats. For COM 138, it's going to be a little bit different. There are a variety of instructors for that class. So your primary source of information is going to be on Top Hat. That's where you're going to go to get access to your information, to your readings, and to lectures, all of it, right? Your syllabus, all of it. And what you'll find with COM 138 is because there are more instructors, you are going to have more mentoring, you're going to have more advising embedded into the curriculum of that course. And so for first year students, this is going to be really, really helpful. It's one of the reasons why we require that course for you to take. And it gives you a great understanding of the expectations that we have for our COM majors and minors. But there are recorded lectures also that you will need to access, again, through Blackboard. So with COM 138, content is with Blackboard and through Blackboard, and with COM 105, it is with Blackboard and with Top Hats. And I think that's all I'm going to say about that now until we get to a few more questions kind of further down. I'll hand it over to Michelle.
All right, I'm unmuted. All right, so what to expect this fall in COM 101 specifically. And it can vary by class. So for example, in COM 101, what we've done, what our department has done is I will be teaching the online version of the class. Now, what students may want to understand is that oftentimes when you're taking a course that was designed for online format, it was created by someone called a course developer. Okay, and so what they are Murrow faculty, and they will set up kind of the space and the units. Oftentimes the lectures will be recorded by someone other than me. So it was somebody who designed the online space. And so that's for the initial intent is for continuity across distance learning spaces, because you've got people from all over taking the course that if you're not like right on campus. So that's the reason there. So there will be that, but then what I also do then as the online instructor is I will record kind of weekly, what I call kind of mini videos to just kind of help keep students stay on track, explain assignments, give some supplementary information and things like that. So for example, what they would see is if they went into COM 101, it's currently not available for them right now, but I've got the space set up. So, and this is probably, online classes, virtual classrooms tend to have this same type of a format. So as you can see, this is week 1. You've got everything lined up here on the left. And then it's also lined up by week. So in my class, here's your to-do list, lectures. So you click on that and it goes to the lecture. And then there is a textbook, and this, in COM 101, the online version uses an open source textbook, so there's no cost. And then there's discussion posts. So you can do the same, you kind of click through and it follows kind of very systematic way of going through the assignments or tasks for each week. And so, and there's our first assignment. There you go. If you're watching this, you got a first assignment, sneak peek right there. But the thing that I'm doing this semester that's different from my previous semesters, at least for COM 101, it's different, is to a lot of my lectures are very discussion based, or at least I try, even though it's a mass lecture class. And I'm thinking, how can I replicate that? So what I'm doing this semester, and I believe you do need a subscription to what's called Packback. And that is, I believe it's $25. So here's an example. And it's essentially, this is where a lot of what used to be, say, discussion points in the class, I'm migrating that to this platform called Packback. And so I've posted a week 1, I kind of try to get the conversation going. It is essentially social media for your classroom in a way. And the intent is to get students to be thinking critically and providing thought out answers, say, to posted questions, and then to start asking each other and responding to each other. So this is a big thing I try to emphasize in Com 101, is thinking through your response before, because on social media, it's kind of like this knee-jerk, reaction. And so I like the idea of this platform because it encourages you to think carefully and will assign points based on, and also coach you through how to give what I would say a cogent response to a prompt. So I've kind of started the conversation week one. Mike, for example, how do different sources cover the same issue? So this is where I'm going to bring in more of the contemporary issues going on, because yes, there's a lot of sort of history background, some theory, in Com 101, but this is where I want to kind of really look at current issues. There's a lot going on and it changes every semester, honestly, and I want to adapt to that. So I post a question and then the students can respond, and it will also then provide, it gives you points in terms of, did you cite a source? Did you articulate yourself in a way that is thought through? Does that make sense? Do you see what I mean? And I think will be really great practice, especially given the social media atmosphere and things like that, to practice responding and posting and things like that in terms of creating a well-constructed question and response amongst students, not just to me, but to each other as well. So I just wanted to give you a little preview of what that would look like.
And similarly to Com 105, like Gabriella was talking about, we will be using a Com 102, a combination of Blackboard and textbook and online platform that will be integrated through Blackboard. I'm going to show my screen in just a second and give you a preview of that, as well as Top Hat, similar to what Gabriella is going to be using in 105. And so I think what some of you at least will find is that you'll be in multiple of these classes at the same time. And the fact that we're all using a variety of platforms, but it's not like, each of the three of us are using completely separate things. So if you get used to using Blackboard and Top Hat for Com 105, you might also use it for 102. And then there'll be some similarities to what you see in Michelle's class for 101 and so forth. So this is my version of what I'll see when I log into Blackboard. So your view will be slightly different as a student, but when you log into Blackboard, you're going to see links to what's called MindTap. So the MindTap is our Cengage textbook and platform that's going to be all linked up through Blackboard. And for Com 102, this is going to make up probably a half to almost probably about a half of what your course is going to be. So rather than coming to a lecture with me, which we would do during a normal semester, you would come to class in a large classroom and I would give you the lectures and we would do things in class and watch videos. All of that will be facilitated through Blackboard and through the MindTap site. And this is where the bulk of your readings and quizzes and things like that will be too. During the first week of class, we'll have walkthrough videos and tutorials. And then when you actually meet your lab instructor in the synchronous format, which I'll talk about in a second, they'll walk you through how to do all of this as well. So basically any of these links you'll be able to click on and it will take you straight over to MindTap. And once you're in there, you can move around within it and navigate all through the course. And again, this is an instructor view rather than a student view. So yours will look slightly different, but just to give you a sneak peek of what to expect. When you first click into there, you'll see things laid out by chapter. And so you've got a chapter here, you can click it, read it, you can highlight, take notes, just like you would in a regular paper textbook. You'll see a quiz that goes along with the chapter. All of those will be assigned for points. And when you log into Blackboard and then go into MindTap, you'll be able to see all of those due dates and everything that's coming up. And then the other thing that's embedded in here are the videos to watch in lieu of or instead of the lectures that you would usually attend with me live and in person. So we've got a couple of different videos for the first week of class, the importance of public speaking anxiety tips. So there'll be lecture videos, and some of those are things that I've recorded, but a lot of them are actually TED Talks, videos from YouTube. The great thing about public speaking is there's a million resources online that are really good. They're really well produced videos. So I like to bring in from a lot of different experts and a lot of different speakers to give you kind of a broad range of different sorts of things. The other thing that's nice in MindTap is that you can look at it week by week. And we'll show you this, but it's what I actually recommend is going into the weekly view, because then you'll see like week 2, okay, 6 activities I'm supposed to complete, which sounds like a lot. And 6 activities is kind of a lot, but usually you'd be spending a portion of that time in class. So rather than coming to class, you're completing more activities in an online format. And a lot of these things count for points. They accumulate and add up for part of your grade and so forth. They have a newer, it's called Virtual Classroom. It functions a lot like Zoom, like this, which is really cool. It's got video, it's got a chat function, but it functions within the Top Hat platform, where we can also take attendance. We can have you answer questions for participation. We put PowerPoints and video clips and all those things right in there in Top Hat. So with Top Hat, that is where you'll actually meet your instructor for your specific section. So when you look on your schedule, and I know Katie's going to show us that in a little bit, you'll see the day and the time. So it might be Wednesday, 10:10 to 11 o'clock. And at that time, you'll log on to the Top Hat site and you'll be with, Sean or Christina or whoever your instructor for your section is going to be. And the live meetings will be with them. So your primary point of contact actually will be your section instructor. And then I'm sort of running things behind the scenes. I'm a secondary person to come to for information, for questions, and for help. But your section instructor will be the one teaching you in the virtual format through Top Hat. So I'm excited. Com 102 is always an interesting class because we typically have around 1,000 students every fall semester, and that is no different this year. We weren't sure if enrollment would go down, but it has not. So we're excited about that. And, it's a new and exciting adventure to do it all in a virtual format, but I think it's going to go really well. So I'll turn things back over to Mackenzie.
Wow, thank you guys so much for sharing all of those awesome resources. We still have quite a few questions for you guys, but getting that inside look of what those classes are going to look like in the fall, man, I wish I had that back, many years ago when I was in undergrad, and being able to look ahead and say, what is this going to look like, and kind of meet my instructor before. So this is such valuable information. We are so lucky to be able to share this with our students and give them a little bit of heads up. And now that you guys have shared some of the online resources that you're planning to use, students can also take the time to go do some research on these platforms as well. How to use Top Hat. What are some tips about, how to do online discussions? And they can kind of start planning ahead. So thank you guys so much for sharing all of that information. We're really, really excited to be able to jump into fall and be able to use those platforms. So kind of ties into our next question that we have for you. Really, we want to know, what are some of the topics that students can expect to learn in your courses? So we're talking about Com 101, 102, 105, and 138 particularly. Most of our students take those in their first couple of semesters. So what are the topics that students are going to learn? And if you want to share more about how those topics are going to be shared through online platforms, we'd love to see that as well. So Gabrielle, I'll turn it back over to you.
But I just want to mention something that hasn't been mentioned yet that I think is really important for students to be aware of, is that Blackboard is your friend, and that is the first place that you need to go to get information. And in Blackboard, you'll find the syllabus, and the syllabus is oh so important. It has everything that you need to know. You need to read it. You need to read it carefully and thoroughly, and it'll really tell you what your first and second and third steps need to be in order to get all the information that you need for your courses. So for Com 105, for example, one of the first things that I ask you to do is to get that Top Hat account and to log in and to make sure that you can access it properly. So let's see real quick. I do want to share my screen. I'm going to take 2 seconds to do this. So this is what my Top Hat looks like. Okay. And what you'll notice here on the left-hand side is my introduction to the course and all of the modules. Okay. Modules, lectures, modules. And what you'll notice, as I mentioned earlier, there's a reading component. Okay. So you're going to just click on that first module, and then you're going to see a fun little picture. You're going to have those key terms pop up for you. These are the things that you have to know from this module that I will in the future quiz you on. questions to think about as you read. And this is your written content, okay, from me. There's homework. There's questions that I want you to answer. Some of these are right and wrong answers, and some of these are, I want your thoughts, okay? So tell me what you think. So I'm asking you to apply content that you're learning. There's an article here that you would simply click on, it'll open, and then you'll respond to multiple choice questions. And I'm going to scroll all the way down. You do the reading, you do the homework, you do all that awesome stuff. There's me in my face. There it's right there. There you go. So what I've done is recorded short-ish. This is a heavier module, so don't be afraid, okay? It's okay. And you'll notice that they're in sections. So I've got part 1 of module 1 lecture. It's 11 minutes. Watch it. There's another one, part 2, 6 minutes. There's another one, part 3, 12 minutes. And then there's another one, 7 minutes. So they're not all like that in terms of length. Some are just 1 or 2 parts. And then end of chapter questions where you can reflect on what you've learned and then hopefully remember, and that will set you on hopefully a good course in terms of learning content and being able to remember the information that that has been shared with you. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go back to that regular screen. All right. So with COM 105, it is split into 3 sections, 3 units, and the first unit is on cultural communication. And what we do in this particular section is we talk about ethics, we talk about nonverbal communication, we talk about cultural norms and values. In the second unit of the course, we talk about risk and crisis communication. We talk about how to manage those things. What do you do in the event of a crisis or situation? How do we communicate science? How are science and technology incorporated into communication in the way that we communicate risk and crisis? And then the third unit is all about technology and social media. So we talk about news and journalism and how that's changed with the implementation and usage of social media. We talk about, I essentially call this new communication. We talk about algorithms and how they play a role in our social media usage. We talk about emotional intelligence and how that plays a role in your personal responsibility associated with communication technologies and social medias. And so that's what we talk about for COM 105. And real quick, I just want to also talk about COM 138. This is a course that has been designed and redesigned recently for COM minors and majors. And what we're really trying to do with COM 138 is to familiarize you, the students, with what media is, what the news is, the values that we're trying to embed in our students, how to critique the news, right? How to make a logical argument. Why does good writing matter, right? Why are we teaching you about grammar and spelling and punctuation, okay? And these are really foundational skills that we want COM students to have. And so we've spent a lot of time figuring out what parts of our college curriculum we want our students to have a good understanding of. And so COM 138 really kind of sets the tone for all of that. Writing for mass audiences, what does that mean? Is it different in news versus advertising versus PR versus online media? And as I mentioned earlier, one of the really, really great things about COM 138 is that mentoring and advising is part of the curriculum of the course. And so you're going to be given a lot of one-on-one help with what a COM degree is going to look like for you and what kind of path you would like to go on and how we can best support our students in that way. And so COM 138 is a lot of content. It's taught by multiple individuals, but really its main focus is to support our students with your compact. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for 105 and 138. I'm going to pass it on to Michelle.
The online course for 101 is a little bit different from how I do my in-person course. So I want to talk about what to expect for the online, for this fall. So the lectures for online 101 as created by the original course developer, okay, so those are going to be delivered by somebody other than myself. So a lot about the first half of the semester, the lectures are very history oriented. that's different than what I do in my in-person class. I spend I relegate a lot of the history kind of stuff more to the text readings for the textbook that I have. And what I do is I instead of calling it history, so my in-person class, I would call it then and now. So I have kind of like a unit that I call then versus now. So it's kind of looking at history, but also compared to, where we're at now and how far we've come. In the online class, which is what this fall students would be taking, it's just very sort of week by week by week, different types or different foci of media history. So it goes through like, print and radio and television and things like that. So it's a little bit more, I guess I would call it like systematic, step by step, and which is fine. I mean, and it kind of follows the chapters of the text as well. And then then the second half goes a little bit more into theory. I mean, that's not like there's no theory at the beginning. There is, but in general, it kind of it focuses a little bit more on, say, aggression and violence in the media, social cognitive theory. So in the influence of media on ourselves, on the audience. And then I also will talk about how the audience then influences media, because in this day and age, we are all media creators. Unlike then, now, in a way, we have the capacity to be mass media creators. And that's something that then remember when I was talking about the packback and the discussion section, that's where I'm going to bring in the more, what I would say, modern current event, personal responsibility in our role as media creators and influencers, even though we don't think we are. But when you've got everybody, say, commenting on a section in social media and it's public, you're a participant in that system of mass media as well. So, excuse me. So, but we also then again, later in the semester, the lectures turn a little bit more to a little bit more theory, media influence and media ethics. And then I wrap up the semester. You will notice, by the way, some overlap between Com 101 and Com 105. And that's a good thing. Okay, that's a good thing because in a way, I view these two classes as kind of working in concert with each other. Between Com 101 and Com 105, you will have the base, the foundation for any future comm class that you take. You pull in 102 as well, the public speaking, the interpersonal communication, and you've built that foundation then for leading up to your focus, whatever it's going to be in comm. But I finish up the semester then with a unit on media activism. So how you can create messages to positively or persuasively in a way, influence others, which, that kind of sort of feeds into my foundations of persuasion class. So if you see me a little bit later. So these classes are meant to build upon each other, and you will see topics that are common across classes, even though it's not a full repeat, but I think that students should see this as a good thing. This is a good thing to see the interrelationship and maybe a different instructor covering the same concept, but maybe a little bit different way or with a little bit different emphasis. So that's what you will see in Com 101. I think I answered the question. Let's turn it over to Erin.
I love that answer, Michelle, and I love the way that you talked about the overlap and integration between the classes, because I think sometimes students are like, oh, I take 101 and 105 and 102, and they seem like separate things, which they are, but we're all part of the same, base program. So those classes together, along with 138, really do build that foundation, which is why they're the classes that you take before you advance further on into your major and into the program. And I think with 102, which is the public speaking class, of the basic courses, it's definitely the most skills-based class because public speaking is a skill, and it's something that everybody, like every single person can develop and improve upon. And I sometimes joke with my students at the beginning of the semester that it sucks to be the professor for the class no one wants to take, because like 99% of the students are anxious and nervous about having to give presentations, which is a totally normal, absolutely human thing to experience. And then there's like that 1%, like the outliers that are like, oh, I did debate in high school, I did FFA, I'm already really good at public speaking. And so sometimes, they're like, I don't have anything to learn, but everybody has something to learn and everybody can improve upon those public speaking skills. So I really try to set up the course in a systematic way that helps you build not only your skills, but really your confidence as a public speaker and kind of like finding your own voice. And I think that with communication, just generally, like as a broad topic and a broad field, it has so many different aspects to it. But regardless of what area of comm you end up going into, it's all about getting the right message to the right audience. So, whether that's giving informative presentation or working in the public sphere and doing activism and, dealing with persuasion, like there's so many different facets to it. But, we'll work with kind of the basic elements of putting together a presentation. So that includes choosing a topic. And a lot of times, especially like if you're a comm major and you're taking 105 and 101 and you learn about something that's just like fascinating and you're like, that is so cool. Like I love, the history of radio and how that evolved into, televised news or something like that. Like choose that as a topic for your comm 102 presentation, right? And then you do more research about like the major and the field you're interested in. And then you learn how to put that message together into a public speech and so forth. So I think you will see a lot of overlap, and there's a lot of ways that you can, just develop not only your knowledge in different areas of communication, but then how to communicate your knowledge and how to communicate the message, which is really kind of what Comm 102 is all about. And the class is called Public Speaking in the Digital Age. And I think that's very appropriate for this semester in particular. And usually, you would do a combination of in-person presentations in your small, group section with your instructor, and then you'd have some recorded presentations. And we've, for the past several years, already integrated, the use of webcams and video recording, because that's been a useful skill already, but now in 2020, it's like the useful skill, right? Because any kind of interview you do, or, even for your, current job, a lot of you may have to communicate in this format. So for this semester, all of your presentations will be recorded and uploaded. So it's a bit different than communicating to a live audience, but, definitely still really important to develop those presentation skills and, just learn about things like how to set up your recording space so that the lighting, works okay. And as we're sitting here through this presentation today, like the sun is coming around the end of my house and it's starting to get brighter in front of me, right? So thinking about what the lighting looks like, what your background looks like, how to make eye contact with your webcam, and, just all of those useful skills, and then just how to kind of develop and build on an idea throughout the semester. So one of the things we'll be focusing on this semester is starting with an initial topic and learning how to really analyze the audience that you're targeting that message toward, develop it in a really appropriate way, and then deliver information on that, look at sources. So we'll talk about source credibility, how to choose good information to share, since we unfortunately live in a world of misinformation and, fake news and so forth. So I'm sure you'll hear a lot of that in Michelle's class and probably in Gabriella's class as well. And then taking that same topic, developing it into more of a persuasive message toward the end of the semester, working together with your peers to do peer critiques and, help each other develop your delivery skills and, improve those sorts of aspects. So I get excited when I talk about this stuff because, I think all of us really love what we do, and we do put a lot of effort into, giving you the best kind of education that we can. So it's great to be able to, just work with the students, and hopefully you guys get the chance to see things a little bit from our perspective too. And I'll turn things back to Mackenzie.
It is so very clear, Erin, like you said, that you guys love what you do. And that is why we wanted you on this video, all of you guys, is because as I ask you these questions, your eyes light up. You're so excited to talk about what your students are going to be learning, what they're going to be doing. And I think that is the biggest thing that we can tell our students right now is it's still our faculty, it's still the Murrow College, and we're still prepared and so willing and excited to teach you all of the skills that you need to get the degree and to get the job that you want in this field. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that's exactly how we feel. And we're, like I said, very excited to have you guys kind of give us that perspective today. Because you guys are such awesome faculty members, you actually answered my next question that I had for you guys, which is why are these foundational courses so important? The 101, 102, 105, 138. And all of you actually answered that in the last question, talking about, excuse me, how it's so important for all of those courses to build on each other so you can ultimately figure out what area in communication you want to go into, but also so you have the background so you know about a lot of different areas in communication as well. So I love that all of those courses built on each other. I love that all of you talked about the importance of these foundational courses. We don't just require them just because we want to, or because, we're just making up rules. We do it because they really are going to help in those 300 and 400 level comm courses that you'll be taking as a junior and senior. So we really appreciate you guys sharing your perspective on that. Kind of a fun question that I think we'll jump into next, just because I'm always curious to hear from faculty perspective. What is your favorite topic to teach and why? Not necessarily your favorite course necessarily, but what's your favorite topic to teach students and why? And Gabrielle, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. That's a very hard question, by the way, to answer because there are a lot of topics that I love to teach, and I don't want to respond with one of those, I love everything and I love all of the topics and I love all. Okay, so here's how I've narrowed all of this down. So I like to teach topics, whether it's in my 105 course or 138 or some of my upper level courses. I like to teach topics that challenge my students. And so sometimes it is just a matter of, okay, what's nonverbal communication and how can I teach that and have fun with it? But it's also, part of my job to help my students grow as individuals. And we don't grow without being uncomfortable. And I like to incorporate that into my classes. Maybe can even ask Katie what her experiences have been like in my classes. But, I want to challenge my students. I want them to think bigger, to think broader. I want them to think with more awareness coming into the topic and situation. I want my students to be more compassionate, more empathic. And so for me, I know that you want like a topic answer, but for me, it's not a specific topic. For me, it's a general feel of the classroom, and am I moving my students forward, and am I challenging my students to think outside of their own personal boxes? And so that's my agenda. And when I see that growth, for me, that's really rewarding. And that's my favorite thing about teaching in general. So if you're squirmy, if you're uncomfortable, if you really just don't want to talk about something, or I break it into small groups in the classroom situation and you do have to talk about it, those are the moments that I take a lot of pride in, because like I mentioned before, you've got to be uncomfortable to move forward. You have to be able to challenge your beliefs and your values, not to necessarily change them, but to just open it up to someone else's beliefs and values. And so even though we are talking about communication, this is a part of communication. We have to be able to open up those communication avenues to our other people. And that involves different values, that involves different beliefs, that involves different forms and formats and ways of looking at something. So for me, my joy comes from pushing buttons just a little bit. Okay, Michelle's turn.
Okay, so that makes me laugh. Not to get too much off, I don't want to get too off track, but I am a bold, outspoken person. Okay, anybody who's taken my class will tell you that. It's been very polarizing across students. I will be honest with you. There are students who think I'm abrasive and rude, even though really I've never personally insulted students, but I will challenge them in terms of, you've made this claim, can you back that up? Okay, well, what about this over here, what this student said? I'm not putting you down. I'm asking you to elaborate on what you've said. And because I'm also quite tall, by the way, you can't tell sitting here, but, I'm a good 5'11". I'm kind of a bit, so I kind of have this, big personality. And some students are like, and so I guess I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So with that said, my favorite topics are the ones that get students in a way the most riled up. And because again, this is a mass lecture class, it's really hard to get, at least in the in-person class. So again, with the caveat that in the online class, it's all asynchronous. This class is all asynchronous. So there isn't going to be this, in the, or whatever you want to call it. There's not going to be me sort of verbally, back and forth, devil's advocate here and there. But I am trying to sort of replicate that to an extent in the pack-back area. But I'm encouraging, again, intelligent discussion. Can you back what you just said? And so with that said, every semester, there are certain units that get students the most involved. And that's what gets me involved. And I feed off of that. And so generally, the topics that are my favorite to teach, and it's because the students will suddenly wake up and I've got more students say, well, what about this? Well, what about that? So that's gender representations in the media, race representations in the media, and free speech, freedom of speech. Those three topics, semester after semester, just get, students, they wake up and they can get, and I think sometimes the other side though of that is that sometimes students can feel a little bit intimidated, like, oh, I said the wrong thing. But I'm like, you didn't say the wrong thing. It's understanding that here's this perspective, here's that perspective. Can you practicing backing that up? And you're not wrong. I spend a lot of time. That's why I say, for example, right in week 1, how do different sources cover the same topic differently? It's not that one side's right and one side's wrong. It's, can you maybe understand where they're both coming from and form some sort of balance or your own perspective, or just understand the other, kind of that empathy, and practicing that in real time, which I know that, like with Gen Z, they're a little uncomfortable with that. Like, I need to speak, and what if I look bad? See, I do care about looking bad, but I'm less, we grew up in you didn't have any other choice but to risk looking stupid in front of other people, because we didn't have this digital format. So we've had more practice at it. But those, in topic wise though, those are the ones that in a way I like to teach the most, because students tend to get a lot more involved and more verbal and come out of their shells. We don't start off the semester with these kind of hard-hitting controversial topics. That's a little bit more midway sort of through. But yeah, gender and race representations in the media, and free speech, First Amendment rights kind of stuff. Those topics are the hot buttons. So I like to push those buttons too.
Oh my gosh, I agree with all of that 100%. So awesome. And I think big picture for me is I talked about Com 102 being a skills-based course where you're building public speaking skills, which it absolutely is. But I'll also talk about in class and try to communicate to my students that public speaking and it's skill, but it's also an art of public discourse, right? Like the root of this field is in democratic society, right? Being able to think about what your opinion is, find information to back that up, just like what Michelle said, form an argument, deliver that argument, but then also be willing to listen to the other side of that argument and engage in civilized debate. And I could go on a whole long rant about everything that's wrong with our current, government and politics and so forth. Won't do that. But what I do try to communicate is that being able to not only listen and take in information, but kind of parse that out and think about, what's coming from where, and then being able to formulate your own message and being able to, think about how to have this kind of dialogue. Like, yes, as a speaker, you're communicating to the audience, but part of that is reading the audience's feedback to your message, being able to change and, articulate and adapt your message as needed, and really trying to just like advance all of us from kind of a civic engagement perspective. And I've brought some of that into the class before. I'm definitely going to be trying to bring a lot more of that into the class this semester, just because I feel like it's an appropriate time to do so with everything that's been going on this year. And again, this isn't the time or the place to go into a lot of details, but I would totally agree that the way we all get better as people is to deal with the hard subjects, right? And in Com 102, we're kind of like systematically building up the skills needed to give a good presentation. And then more toward the end of the semester, when we start to get more into building arguments and going through reasoning processes and dealing with persuasion, that's where people start to, disagree a little bit or have different viewpoints, and to be able to recognize that, Michelle and I may have a different perspective on something. It doesn't mean that she's wrong and I'm right, or vice versa, but being willing and able to really listen to each other and to listen to a well-articulated, message, I think is really exciting for me to see. And then, those kind of like aha moments when a student gives us a presentation that's not only like technically really well done, but just like filled with passion for the topic and, the whole process of putting the message together and then delivering it to the audience. For me, that's really exciting to see. And you can take that into any context, right? It's the thing, like, it's not just for your Com 102 class. You can take that into any of your future classes, into, job interviews, your future career and all of that. So when students kind of put those pieces together and, kind of accept that challenge and then tackle it head on, it's really very cool to see. Okay, Mackenzie.
Great answers from all of you. That's honestly what I expected you all to say as well, that there really isn't, the specific chapter or topic, but I want to see my students, like Erin said, I want to see them be passionate about their position. I want to see them listen to others, and I want them to communicate well. That's what I want to see in the classroom. And I love that you all shared that. That is definitely something that we strive for with the Murrow legacy. You guys all came through with that in your answers. And hopefully now with our students watching this video, they kind of know what you guys are expecting from them, is that there is no wrong answer as long as you know how to back it up and communicate it well to your audience. So that's really what we're trying to teach. And I love that, like I said, with all of our foundational courses, that's going to come through. It kind of feeds really well into our next question that we have for you guys, which you guys kind of all shared a little bit about yourselves, what you like to teach, what you do teach, what your kind of process is for getting those messages across. So my next question is that students often hear about office hours or drop-in hours, and they don't really know what those are, right? Especially for faculty. Or if they do know what those are, they're afraid to use them. They're like, I'm scared to go talk with my faculty member one-on-one, either in a virtual environment or in a face-to-face environment. They think it's really intimidating. They don't know really what to talk about during that time. So if you all could share a little bit about, now that we know a little bit about you and what you guys expect in your courses, what do you expect your students to use your drop-in or office hours for, especially this fall semester?
Okay, I will begin. So first and foremost, I want to acknowledge that I know that I understand, I think we all do, that speaking to your professor one-on-one, whether it is a virtual experience, which it will be for the fall, or personal, right, in person in someone's office, can be intimidating. But you're going to have to push through that. You're going to have to come and knock on our doors. Please believe us when we say that we are much nicer in person. And we want our students to come and talk to us. We want you to come to us with our questions. You should use our office hours. And so whenever we say that our office hours, for example, for mine would be Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 10 to 12. That means that I'm available to my students either in my office or via live Zoom, which will be the case in the fall. It means I'm available. that time. You don't have to make an appointment. You can show up. You can click on the link that I have in Blackboard for the Zoom office hours. And if I'm available, you and I will be sharing a screen together. And if I'm already with a student, you'll be placed into a waiting room. And then when I'm available, I'll be able to speak with you. And these meetings are so incredibly important because it creates some camaraderie, some mutual trust and respect that we will have for one another as students and as a teacher. It helps you understand us a little bit better, where we're coming from. And we love to meet our students and to understand what your experiences have been like as a student, what maybe you're looking forward to, what you hope to get out of the class. How can we help you, reach your goals in our courses and to do well in our courses? And I think that this is really important. We always have little tricks and tidbits and little on my test. Okay, well, let me tell you all my wonderful information. And even though we do that in the classroom also, it's so much better on a one-on-one basis because we can tailor what we think that you need, right? If I think that you are an audio learner and we've established that in a one-on-one conversation with one another, then I can give you some tips on, how to study for my class with the way that you communicate, the way that you learn information and digest content. And I think that students just don't understand sometimes the benefits of meeting with a teacher one-on-one, whether it's, Zoom or in person during office hours. So again, there's no need to make an appointment. If your teacher asks you to do that, of course, go ahead and make an appointment. But office hours and drop-in hours are essentially just, I'm here, I'm in my office, or I'm on the computer and I'm waiting for the next student to show up, and I'll give you as much time, as I can. And of course, we can do that via email also. But I really encourage you to become comfortable with meeting with someone one-on-one because it's not going to end after your college career. So you might as well start getting used to it because it's going to happen a lot. All right, on to you, Michelle.
Okay, so I'm going to just piggyback off of that. So again, even though I guess I can be sort of like maybe a little intimidating because I'm assertive, I firmly believe it's because I have a strong voice and I'm assertive and I will challenge and play devil's advocate and stuff like that in class. But sometimes students are like, I'm afraid to go meet with her. And then students, they come meet with me. The brave ones, I guess. No, I do. I have several students that come meet with me. A lot of students also, they choose me, and you Gabby and Aaron have probably had this too, where there's certain student programs where they need to come interview a professor and get their insights. And so I love those. Those are like some of my favorite things because they'll ask you stuff that's not really it's not related to your course. It's just more about like a college and academia and navigating life in general. And I love those conversations. And I have had students say, oh, at first I was a little scared to meet with her, but you know what? Actually, she's really nice. I'm a nice person. And I think the thing is, a student, because we all teach mass lecture classes, we have hundreds of students sitting in a single section. And so therefore, when we are in front of hundreds of students, we have to communicate and maintain a classroom management and a control of the classroom. And so, if you're trying to talk with your friends over my lecture, I'm probably going to ask you to stop doing that, because I can't lecture while you're talking and things like that. So, but at the same time, then, so I think sometimes they go, oh, what if she, I don't even care if you were the person that I just told to stop talking, it's just come talk to me. I'm not mad at you, and so students will come talk to me a lot of times and they're just like, wow, this is really helpful. Or I've even student comments at first, I was a little bit intimidated, but then I went and met with her and she's really nice and helpful and helped me through, constructing this research paper. That's what I'm here for. That's part of our job. And I enjoy it. I also really love it when, I don't know why. I think they just kind of, relax a little and like, so what do you think I should do in this situation? Like it kind of goes off of, it veers off of the topic of the class and it's more, they just kind of want to know how to navigate the college experience or life. And to me, those are like almost my favorite conversations to have, whether it be virtual or in person. So my office hours, same thing. I don't quite know what they're going to be yet for this fall, given the variety of classes that I'm teaching, but it does mean that I am available, like I'm online, sitting there, waiting for somebody to pop up on my screen, and that means that during those hours, unless something comes up in my, life and stuff, I'm going to be there. And so some students will make appointments ahead of time during those office hours. So if you're wanting to make an appointment with me, it's like that's a guaranteed window that you can get an appointment with me. And so in terms of that, it's kind of a first come, first serve. So if somebody wants to make an appointment and guarantee that I can meet with them, then they should make an appointment ahead of time during my office hour block. But like Gabby said, if I'm not meeting with a student, whether it be walk-in or by appointment, you popped up on my screen. Hello, what can I do for you? Kind of a thing. I'm also available, not always available, but I am also available by appointment. And that's, again, if it were an in-person class, it would be in person, not at like 2 a.m. or something, but like I have frequently met with students outside of office hours. So that's another thing, is students shouldn't think that that's the only time, because some professors, their office hours are like 11 to 12 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it's like, most students have class, during that time. So therefore, I always tell students, if you want to make an arrangement with me for 3 to 3:30 on a Tuesday or Monday, whatever, that's fine. You just need to set it up ahead of time. So I am available generally within the business day, although it also, I've met with students online, through Zoom at like 6 o'clock in the evening, if that's the only thing that can work for them and I can get the access. So there is flexibility there. So I would want to reiterate that students shouldn't feel like office hours is like the only time they could possibly talk in person with their students. Most professors across the board, or they should, have by appointment, if something that does work for you, your class schedule, your work schedule, and things like that. Even if it's something like, like I said, 6 o'clock in the evening, that we can make that work, as long as it's scheduled ahead of time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. And I would just add that we do this job because we enjoy it. And especially those of us that teach the large 100 level classes, like we legitimately love teaching you and we are here to help you. And I think sometimes students don't see that or forget it somehow. And just like Michelle was saying, particularly when we have hundreds of students and a lot of things to keep organized and managed, there is a certain kind of strict demeanor you have to take on in the classroom sometimes. And I can see how that could be a little bit off-putting and intimidating. But when you come talk to us in person, we're all very nice, people with families and pets and all kinds of things we do outside of class. And it always would crack me up, pre-COVID days, when I would go to Walmart or the movie theater and I'd see students whispering and pointing at me. And then I would say hi and be like, hey, and they're like, oh my gosh, they exist outside of the classroom. Yeah, we're just regular humans, so come and talk to us like humans. And we love getting to know you. I love it when students come and, meet in my office or meet on Zoom. And actually one of the things I noticed during the spring when we had to shift abruptly to a virtual format is I actually had more students visit my virtual office hours than I did previously for in-person office hours. And I think part of that's just because it's easy, right? You don't have to walk anywhere on campus. You can just click into the Zoom link and then there we are. So, it's pretty convenient and easy to do that. And I would say too that, remember, if you're a Murrow student and you're majoring in comm, you're going to have each of us in class at the 300 and 400 level as well. So you might be in 101, 102, 105 this semester, but next year, the year after, you're going to be in 309, COM 486, and, all of the upper division classes. So, I mean, I love it when I've had a student in 102 who got to know me a little bit, and then I see them later in COM 486, and it's like, yeah, okay, cool. We already have this, instant connection on the first day of class, and that helps build the rapport in the classroom with all of the other students as well. So, the whole program builds upon itself, and you'll see us again later. And we're the people that can be references for you for job applications. We can write letters of recommendation, and all of those things that you'll need in the future, but only if we know you. If I have a student who I never had a conversation with, then ask me for a letter of recommendation, it's kind of like, I can't really write anything. Like, I don't really know you. But if I've gotten to know you and I know your work and, the kind of work ethic and things that you have, then I'm happy to do that. So, I mean, I would say when I have family friends whose kids are going off to college for the first time, and they'll say, oh, hey, Erin, you're a professor. Like, what's your advice, for my 18-year-old, kid going to college? My number one piece of advice is go meet your professor. Like, we are resources for you, and we are here to help you, not only in our class with success, navigating college, just as a whole. So definitely come meet us. Like, we love to meet you. So, hopefully you enjoy meeting us too. Okay, Mackenzie, back to you.
Great answers from all of you. Truly, we have both in advising, student services, but with faculty, staff, we all have these drop-in or office hours for students to utilize if you have questions. And just like all of you mentioned, they are there as a resource. So utilize them. We also found, Erin, with most of the classes, virtual drop-in hours were utilized much more than in person because, you can be in your pajamas. I don't recommend that, but you could be in your pajamas and log in and meet your professor if you have a quick question or want to review any of the topics from class. Super accessible. As an advisor, as a recruiter, as a staff member, my recommendation just to add on top of that is don't wait until the middle of the semester, the end of the semester to utilize those drop-in hours. Even if you don't have questions about class, like Erin said, go meet your professor, introduce yourselves, start talking about what you have in common, what you hope to learn, what your goals are. You never know what kind of resources and things you can take away from that meeting. So I recommend, within the first month, go meet your professors because they're there as a resource for you. Same with your academic advisor as well. They just want to meet with you, get to know you. And like I said, they're there as resources. So to kind of close out this time with our awesome faculty members that were here with us today, I just have one last question. I always like to ask this at the end of every panel. Any other piece of advice that you guys would maybe like to share with our incoming first year transfer students about how to be successful in the Murrow College, in college, or in life in general? So any last piece of advice that you guys would like to share? And Gabrielle, I'll pass to you.
Sure. I will start with 3, and then I will pass the baton on to Michelle and Erin. So the first one just piggybacks off the last thing that we've been talking about, which is come and meet with me. Meet with every single one of your professors. That's number 1. Okay, that'll set you off on a really good. It'll set you off on a good tone for the semester, right? Full of energy. You're excited about the courses. You feel like you've got a good grasp of what's going on for each of your courses. So meet with your instructors, number 1. Number 2, you have got to learn, if you haven't figured it out already, how to manage your time efficiently. This is something that I find a lot of freshmen have challenges with. And you know what? We can help you with that. But having a really good schedule planned out for yourself, having an understanding of how much time you need to commit to each of your classes on top of what you do outside of the classroom, whether it's sports and other athletics, whether it's clubs, whether it is a job, maybe it's more than one job, maybe you have a family that you need to also be committing your time to. So it's really important for you to establish what your priorities are for every single day and manage your time well and efficiently. And if you need any help with that, your advisors and your instructors can certainly help. And I think that the third thing that I'm going to talk about in terms of tips would be to ask questions for assignments, in particular before you submit the assignment and also after you've received a grade for your assignment. Do not wait until the end of the semester when your grade is not what you hoped it would be to figure out why you didn't get a good grade on your first quiz or your first paper or your first test. It's really important to meet with your instructor so that you have a good idea of what the expectations for that assignment are. And then you study or you write or you prepare for your presentation or your speech. And then afterwards you ask for feedback. Feedback is so incredibly important. What did I do well? Because I want to make sure that I do that again. And what do I need to make improvements on? Or I got a C on my first quiz. I really want to get an A on my next one. So I'm going to go and talk with Gabriella 2 days after the quiz has been graded, and we're going to go through the questions. We're going to figure out, why I was confused or get a better feel of how, my professor asks questions on tests so that I can be better prepared. So really just being really proactive about that, right? Talking to your professors before the assignment to make sure that you understand all of the instructions. And then also asking for feedback and even more detailed feedback that you might get on Blackboard. Go in and talk to your professors via Zoom, obviously, for fall, and to get a better understanding of how you can improve the next time around. I think that these are things that students forget to do, and they don't often do them until the end of the semester when they're freaking out about their grades and it's not where they want to be. But there's a simple solution to this, and that is to meet with your professors and do it often and get as much feedback as you can. I think that'll really set you up for a successful year. All right, on to Michelle.
Okay, so I was going to say time management, but again, so two things. If I could, so I'll answer this a little bit more holistically, I guess, and for life, time management and self-discipline. I cannot emphasize self-discipline enough. And I understand that most of my students are, 18, but part of that means you are disciplined. That's what it is. You are doing your readings ahead of time. You are reading, you've read the syllabus, you know the expectations, you've read the instructions to the assignment, you've seen the rubric, which I make available, the grading rubrics are available. In this case, you've either in an in-person class, you've been to class to listen to, because I answer a lot of questions in class, and or in the online situation, I will have recorded kind of a preview of commonly asked questions. You've done those things. You've done your part, and then come and ask questions, because, get your research, build that knowledge, be a student by studying and building that knowledge, have that self-discipline, and then I can help you better, or I can help you. There have been students who are like, I don't understand this assignment. Did you read the chapters yet? No. Okay, so have you read the instruction, the full from start to finish? And no. Well, that's why you don't understand the assignment. I know that some people think that sounds harsh, but that's the reality. I know that all three of us have students that, we're like, well, because oftentimes the answer is written. Now, I've also noticed that and I've talked to students, I said, why, if the answer's right here, I think and I've come to learn that a lot of times students these days, they just want reassurance that they're interpreting it correctly. And it's because maybe sometimes, with me, I'm like, there's no hidden message here. I mean, it really is what it is. But so that's okay too, but it's nice for students to say, so I've read through the instructions, but I just want to make sure I've got this part right. Okay, that makes a lot more sense, and that's more helpful to us in terms of, okay, so that's where you're coming from. But so having that self-discipline to do what you need to do ahead of time, and then you can have a more meaningful conversation with us, and that just goes for life, time management and self-discipline. I've had conversations with students where, I just don't have enough time to get the work done. And now this is a student who I'd met with a few times, and he was like, well, I go to bed about 3 a.m. and so let's back up. It's not that you aren't capable of doing the work. It's not that you're not smart enough. It's you're staying up till 3 a.m. and doing something. I mean, it has more to do with life management, time management. What are you doing with this time that you're not in class? And then how is that affecting your ability to then get things done for class? And a lot of times it just went back to that. And we just sat down, like for this student, I sat down and worked with him on a Sunday through Saturday, literally a week schedule for not just his class time, but his study time and his free time. And, we're older. So to us, that makes a little more sense. But to an 18, 19, even 20-year-old, it's like, oh, I never really thought of it this way. So again, time, even if you have to block it out like that, I highly recommend you block it out like that. That's what I had to do because I was a student athlete in college. And so, yeah, pretty much every piece of my day, including the time that I needed to read, study, was all blocked out. So time management and self-discipline would be my two overall recommendations.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. And I think the self-discipline part is even more important in the current age of virtual learning that we're in, because previously, like, you would have class times to go to, right? And I think maybe it was Gabby early on said, like, go to class, right? Or Katie, I think, said, go to class and go to your Zoom class, and I will tell you that even in person, like large lecture classes, when we take attendance and you get points for attending class, a good attendance day is around 75% of the class that actually shows up, physically sits in a seat in class. And I'm like, it's literally the easiest thing to do. I know sometimes you're tired, but like, grab a snack, grab your coffee, go to class, right? And when you have those class times to keep you accountable, I think it's a little bit easier than like, oh, well, my class is at 9, but it's on Zoom, so I could just sleep through it and catch up later. But it is really difficult to get caught up later. And with the 100 level classes, because the information there's more like breadth of information that we cover and less depth, meaning we go over more topics in less detail. And you have a lot of small assignments all the time. And especially in Com 102, like, you'll find there's a lot of weekly tasks to do. And most of them don't take that much time, but together added up, they take a large chunk of your time. And it's always going to take more time than you think it's going to take, right? Like, even yesterday, I was working on some class prep for the semester. In my mind, it was going to take me half the day. Okay, I'll get started by like 8:30. By lunchtime, early afternoon, I'll be finished with that. It took me the entire day until 5 o'clock, right? And I'm pretty experienced doing this by now. So things will always take more time than you think they're going to take. So I think especially at the beginning of the semester, figure out a way to hold yourself accountable and think, okay, my classes meet virtually at these times. Like, I need to plan on being there at those times. And that way, like, if you do end up getting sick or you have other things that come up and you miss a class, if you miss one class, it's not a big deal, right? But if you miss a lot of classes, then it starts to become a very big deal very quickly. And it's a really cumulative effect. So if you get a little behind, you can get caught up if you come to us for help. If you get a lot behind, even with our help, it's very difficult to get you caught back up. So I think that self-discipline is just really important. And to second what Michelle said too about reading the directions, like with Com 102, I sort of joke with my students, but it is literally true that you can be the worst public speaker in the entire world and still get an A in public speaking, because a very small portion of the grade is actually on the speech delivery itself. A lot of it is keeping track of the readings, doing the quizzes, doing the written outlines, those daily tasks, showing up to your virtual class. You get points just for being there and logging an attendance code, paying attention and answering participation questions throughout the 45 minutes that you're online with your class. So just those little things, those points add up so much to give you your total grade. So just think about, like, it's all in the small details, right? And in my class, at least, you're not going to take like a big final exam at the end of the semester. So it's really about just starting off the semester by reading that syllabus and then just reading the directions. And like Michelle said too, like, it's not a secret. Like, everything we're asking you to do is very clearly written out. It's detailed. I give you checklists. All of the due dates are in Blackboard. They're in Top Hat. Like, you just log in and there you see everything that you're supposed to do that week or by next week or whatever. So it's not a secret. Just remember to read it. And then and read the syllabus, read the directions, and then ask us questions, right? Because it is frustrating from our end, especially when I have 1,000 students, right? So imagine even if only 10% of you email me, that's still a lot of students emailing me, right? And if there are questions that could be answered just by looking at the syllabus or looking at the information on Blackboard, it's like, ugh, right? It's frustrating, and I want to try to respond to you, but kind of do your part, and then that allows us to do our part.
Great advice from all of our first year faculty. Those are all pieces of advice that students should take, not just through this first year and just while we're virtual, but through your whole college and job experience. We're looking at more and more things moving virtual as our society kind of progresses and changes with COVID and with other things going on. So learning these skills now and being able to apply them for the rest of your life is going to be so, so valuable. So Katie's going to show us how you can find that information in MyWSU. But first, Katie, I'll turn it over to you to let us kind of have us look at how to log into those systems.
Awesome. I'll just share my screen real quick. So this is what your MyWSU is going to look like. And so to see your classes for the current semester, you're going to go to this tile right here that says Manage Classes. And once you pull this up, this is how it's going to look immediately. You have your weekly schedule, so it lays out what classes you have at what time. And with the new online format, there's going to be a few different codes underneath to show you what format of class. So like right here, I have web arranged. And so that means I still need to be logged on to Zoom at the appropriate time, so 11:10, and my professors will be lecturing at that time via Zoom. If you do scroll down though, all the way to the bottom, here's a class right here where it's going to be how Mackenzie talked about asynchronous, where there's not a meeting time, and it's just you're going to have to schedule it out yourself and do it at the pace that they want you to. So this is where that class would be. If you're looking to contact your professors right now in the summer, their contact information can be found under View My Classes. So you're just going to go right here. And as you'll see, your classes are right here. So I'll try this first one. So I'm just going to press on COM 497. It'll take you right. Whoop. Excuse me, that was wrong. I'm going to go over here and just click this right here. And this will give you lots of class details. So your enrollment information, your meeting information. So if you go to meeting information, you'll see a hyperlink with your professor's name on it. And you'll click on that and it gives you their email address. If their phone number is logged, that'll be there as well. So this is really where you can find that information before even the first day of class. And then I will show you, there's a couple different ways that you can log on to Blackboard. You can actually get onto Blackboard and your email through MyWSU. That'll be here under like quick links. So you can log into Blackboard here, your email here, or for Blackboard, if you're not on MyWSU currently, you can just go to learn.wsu.edu. And of course, all this stuff is in there for me because I've been using it for a while. And again, you'll have to log in with your WSU credentials. This is the same credentials for MyWSU. And this is what your Blackboard space looks like from a student perspective. So all your classes that you'll be taking will be right here. And when you click on one, that's where you'll go into the course space. So whatever that looks like for the specific teacher, this is where you'll find that. I also like to tell students that there is an app for Blackboard, which makes it really easy to maintain your grades. You can set up notifications when grades get posted or anything you really want a notification for. So I would really highly recommend that you download the Blackboard app.
I do want to jump in just really quick and share just a little bit more onto what Katie said. From an advisor perspective, I just want to share how to read your fall schedule. We're getting lots and lots of questions about this. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I will share my screen and I will show you what you're going to see on different parts of MyWSU as well as schedules.wsu.edu. Blanket statement. Pretty much every Murrow class is virtual, right? We don't speak for engineering, we don't speak for math, we don't speak for the other majors, but for the Murrow College, your classes will be virtual. But let's talk about what that means, asynchronous versus synchronous, etc. So this is an actual snapshot of a student's schedule, and we see a couple different things. So this is what Katie was showing us on MyWSU. One class is listed here, AMDT 210, is listed from 3:10 p.m. to 6 p.m. And it says Web Arranged ARR. What that means, again, virtual. Classes are virtual this fall semester. So that means that it will be online, but it's going to be online at 3:10 p.m. And this is Pacific time because WSU is on Pacific time. So at 3:10 p.m., however your instructor has dictated that your class will be working in the fall semester, you will log in at 3:10 p.m., learn the content information until 6 p.m., and then log off. Different from that, the student is also enrolled in COM 101, which is one of the classes that we talked about today during our video. COM 101 is listed at the bottom, again, like Katie showed us with her schedule, and there is no day or time listed. And that's because it's asynchronous, meaning that there isn't a specific time that you need to log in to do this information. It's just saying you're enrolled in this class. You still need to log on and do the weekly or daily assignments according to your instructor, but it is asynchronous. So that means it's not going to show up on your weekly schedule. So make sure to scroll all the way to the bottom to make sure you're seeing all of your classes. A couple other screenshots I'll share. I'm going to pull up COM 101 again. This is what you would see on schedules.wsu.edu. So if we pull this up on the WSU official schedule, what you'll see is that COM 101 is listed as ARR. And what that means, again, it is virtual, it is online, but no day or time listed. You will also see that it's listed on the global campus because global campus classes are not synchronous. Typically, they're asynchronous. So that's why you kind of see that looking the way that it is on schedules.wsu.edu. Last picture I do want to share. This is what's confusing a lot of our students. So I will make sure and go over this with you as many times as needed. This is the view from my.wsu.edu. A lot of students pull up their weekly schedule from the Student Center and see that a lot of their classes say room TBA. TBA stands for to be announced. But why that's a little bit confusing is because it's actually not going to be announced. TBA means that the course is asynchronous, meaning that that is one of the courses that you are not going to log on to at a specific time. This student is in COMJOR 487, which has a day and time listed. It says web arranged, it's virtual, but 12:05, you better be logged on to the system ready to go. COM 309, on the other hand, it does say to be announced. We asked them to change that. There's no way for us to adjust that, unfortunately, but there will not be a day or time announced. It means that it is asynchronous, online. Your schedule is the way it is right now, but you still need to log in and do the work. The reason why I think this is confusing a lot of students is because when you do log on to view your weekly schedule, you see that COMJOR 487 in this case and ComStrat 310 have times listed on those days. But otherwise your schedule looks pretty blank. It looks kind of empty. And that can be kind of alarming. But just remember that what we talked about today, penciling in those other classes, that will fill up your schedule for the 15 or 16 credits that you may be taking for the fall semester. So the TBA is confusing. We apologize for that, but there's nothing that we can do on our end to fix that, except tell you that you are enrolled. The class will be asynchronous. The instructor will contact you with ways to get logged on and get that information. But otherwise, your schedule is set for fall with everything being virtual on our end. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of insight as to what your fall schedule looks like, including some awesome perspectives from our faculty members, which we really, really appreciate. Other than that, what I do want to say is with questions regarding your schedule, I know we've talked about this a lot, but if you still have questions, make sure to contact your academic advisor. I will go ahead and throw up the student services resource slide here. You can call us, email us. We're going to have drop-in hours and you can contact us that way as well. And we'd be happy to answer any of the questions you have about your fall schedule. Try to do that before the first day of classes if you can, so we can get you enrolled. Wait lists are working a little different because we're virtual this fall, so make sure to contact us with questions about that. But otherwise, we hope that you took a lot away from this episode. You got to meet some of our awesome faculty here in the Murrow College, got to talk with Katie as usual, and hopefully learned a little bit more about how to navigate some of our online systems. So with that, we'll go ahead and close out. We'll see you next time for our next Murrow Minutes episode. And until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and go Cougs.